but it's also a curiosity that I encourage all of us to adopt. Because especially if you're in a long-term relationship, I think it's so important. If you're not interested in what the person is doing anymore, what the person is up to, what new experiences they're doing, the relationship will get boring really quickly.
Okay, hello everybody and welcome to this video interview. And today I want to cover a very, very important topic. I think one of the most important things, because regardless of how good you are in, your business, selling something, in dating, whatever that may be in all areas of life, one of the most important things is communication. Because you might be the smartest, the most intelligent, the most funny person in the world, but if you don't know how to communicate those things, then it's just going to be a waste of all your talents. And so for that, I have a special person here today that will help us to understand what is a proper communication, how to communicate properly, and hopefully we'll learn something out of it so we can improve our communication. And so for that, I have Brenden, who is a communication coach. Brenden, now I know you focus mainly on public speaking, perhaps. Can you just tell us a little bit about what you do as a communication coach?
Yeah, absolutely, Gino. It's great to be on. For me, communication, to your point, is everything.
Yeah.
Where it's not just get up on a stage and delivering a message. It's the way that we talk to the people around us. It's the way that we talk to our families. It's the way that we talk to our romantic relationships. It's the way that we talk to our business partners. Communication is every interaction in our lives. So how we focus on improving the way we communicate not only helps us, but it helps the people around us as well. Because there's more clarity, there's less confusion, and there's also a lot more peace.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure. I can see it, because if you communicate something, let's say you have a feeling for a person, or you love a person and you want to say something to them, but you're not able to communicate it clearly. It's like making the other person so confused. Do you like me? Do you not like me? Or what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say you want to be more with me, or the way you communicate looks to me or it sounds to me like you're not even interested. You're so distant because there is no much communication, or it's not even clear. So for sure, yeah, communication is well, they say communication is the key. Yeah. So I wanted to, I guess I will get straight into my first question to you, Brenden. So what is the DNA for a proper communication? Now, obviously, there's different type of communications. Like you can go on a stage and do a public speaking. You're probably going to be speaking in a different way in comparison. You be speaking on a date, on a romantic date with a partner or someone you want to see. And then there was maybe a difference in the way you just going to chit chat with somebody you just met, at work perhaps, or on the street. So I wonder, what is the DNA, and also what is the differences? Like, how can people start distinguishing in their mind the different ways of communication?
Absolutely, Gino. You know what I would say is, you're right. There's different types of communication in different contexts, conversations, dates, business relationships. So you communicate on a stage or something. But there's principles that are consistent throughout all of those forms of communication. I'll give you a super easy example. Mirroring. So mirroring means mirroring the energy of the person you're speaking to. Whether it's on a stage, or more importantly, for the purposes of this conversation, this podcast, when you're trying to build a relationship with somebody else. So I'll give you an example with my face. Let's say you go, "Hey, Brenden, how's it going?" I go, "Great. Life is great. How about you, Gino?" I'm not mirroring the energy. And this is also true when I go on podcasts. It might be a good way for people to understand this. When I talk to someone extroverted, they might sound something like this. "Oh, Brenden, I'm super excited to have you on the show." So whenever I reply, I'm super excited to be here. It's going to be great. But the opposite is also true. "Hey, Brenden, really excited to see you." So my response sounds something more like this. "Hey, Paul, it's great to meet you. Are you a bit nervous about this podcast?" She goes, "Oh yeah, a bit nervous." No worries. How about we get into a couple of questions, see what we can do? Notice that's completely different,
Yeah, and here is
right?
like you're trying
Huh.
to make it uplift it a little bit. Like you don't want to match that. You're trying to make it a little bit more, make maybe perhaps the other person feel more comfortable to speaking with you.
You nailed it. Absolutely. So it's about adapting. And a lot of people think that's fake. It's not fake. It's about having the empathy to adapt to the energy of another person. And
Mm.
another easy example is when you talk to a 7-year-old. When you talk to a 7-year-old, you're not supposed to say negative things. You're supposed to be positive, happy, because
Yeah.
that kid is still developing. They're still young, right? They don't know any better. So even when subconsciously we're always adapting our energy. So now the key is how do we be more intentional about that?
Mm. Okay, so the DNA of a good communication is to adapt to the situation. And now, if we could zoom a little bit more on what is the structure, like what is the structure to, let's say, storytelling. Like there is a reason why we all love storytelling, why we read books or watch movies. Kids engage so much in those like Disney movies, and there is a story that the movies tell. So now I wonder, as far as what is the DNA, the structure of a story that, or the speaking, because we speak some sort of stories, sometimes are very short stories.
Absolutely. So now the next piece is then when we go into principles, we go into structures. Let me just give one more principle that I think is super
Okay.
important is listening. But a lot of people hear that all the time. What does it mean to listen? And I can give you a concrete example. In
Mm.
my opinion, listening means, and most people don't do this, is whenever somebody asks you or responds in a statement, you should respond with a question.
Mm.
So, for example, in most conversation, Gino says something, Brenden says something. Gino says something, Brenden says something. Whereas in meaningful conversation, Gino says something, and then Brenden asks a follow-up question on what Gino just said. And then Gino responds, and then Brenden asks another question
Mhm.
about what Gino said. So if you want to get better at, relationship building in the context of the show, whether it's building friendly relationships or romantic ones,
Mhm.
the people who stand out are often the ones who ask more questions rather than statements. So let's say me and you met for the first time, and I said, "What do you do?" You might say you're a dating coach, you might say you're a podcaster. I wouldn't respond with what I do. Oh, I do this, this, this. No, no, no. I would say, what got you into dating? Why is it something you're really passionate about? Why are you
Mhm.
excited about that? So then you would keep talking, and then you would say something about dating. Oh, this happened to me. Like, cool. Talk to me more about the story.
Mm.
So I'm really keeping the focus on you. So then after 10 minutes of you talking, you go, whoa, whoa, whoa. There's a mystery that starts to create. Who are you? Like, what do you do?
Mm.
So that's another piece, another principle of communication. It doesn't just apply in romantic relationships; it applies in any interaction you have. So that's principle 2.
Okay.
And then principle 3 is empathy. So mirroring, listening, and empathy. So empathy is saying the following: always put yourself in the shoes of the other person and how they're reacting to what you're saying. I'll give you a super easy example. Let's say you're in a relationship. One person goes, "Did you take out the trash?" And the other person goes, "No, I forgot to take out the trash."
Mm.
Objectively, what that person said, they just said they didn't take out the trash. But how that information is being interpreted is completely different. It tells a different story.
Mhm.
And the story, as you can probably guess, is I don't care about your feelings. I don't care about the
Leave me
trash. And I don't
alone.
care about you. Yeah,
Yeah,
leave me
leave me
alone.
alone.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's also important for people to think about how is what we're being said being interpreted by the other person, which is a completely different response to, honey, forgot to take out the trash. We'll
Mm.
take care of that. Same thing, completely different interpretation. So,
Yeah.
anyways, jump in and then I'll go into the structure.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think this is so important because people aren't aware much about how they make other people feel and how they like, even like sometimes when I talk to people, they might say words that, polite words in some sense to try to seem like they could being polite, but the facial expressions too. But you see, the facial expressions are not congruent with what they say, and it doesn't land well as well because it's like, yeah, like you don't want to use the trick to say it in a voice that is like, yeah, oh, sorry, I forgot it. because you might say it in a way that, yeah, you make the other person hear that you care, and you're like, oh, sorry, like you forgot, and you don't, you still care about how they receive it, but then with your facial expression. So I think it's beautiful what you said, because it just like, yeah, there's all those things that you have to align to have the person engage and be with you, and on all levels of communications. And so, yeah, I love it. The empathy, I think, is very important. It's like how everything starts, where it all begins. It's like how you feel on the inside, and I think that's maybe one of the biggest things to maybe learn at some level is, if you feel from the inside you have good intentions for people, and you actually have a genuine way of talking and feeling towards someone, then maybe perhaps everything will sound right. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think?
No, I absolutely love everything that you said. We're definitely on the same page here.
Hmm.
I think the other piece to that, going back to empathy, how do you practice that? Right? How do we practice that? So the way I always like to say, and this is something, by the way, if you're a guy, this is a huge advantage for you. Because I think 90, based on everyone I've coached in my life on communication, 95% plus don't do this. And the exercise is, whenever you get into an argument with someone, argue the other side first.
Hmm.
So let's say me and you are in a fight, as an example, and you go, well, I want to go to the Chinese restaurant. And I say something simple. And I go, well, I want to go eat Subways or something. We get into the super heated argument. So what very few people do, especially guys, is they stop and go, well, if I wanted Chinese food, why do I want Chinese food that badly? Why does Gino want Chinese food? So let me defend your own argument from your perspective. Or another example I can give, if that didn't resonate, is a trash example, right? Somebody goes, Britt, put the trash away, and you go, no, I don't have time for this. So instead of you arguing your own case, try and defend the others. Why is taking out the trash so important for Leslie? Or for Julia, or for Max, whatever, right? And when we start doing that, once again, very few people do this. When you start doing that, your facial expressions, the way you communicate, changes completely. Because then you say, oh, well, we haven't taken the trash out in 3 weeks. Maybe there's some, because, the house kind of smells. I understand the perspective. Yeah. She's probably right. So that would be the other piece is, are you willing to do that? And from a listening perspective, now we're getting into the top 1% of guys. We just went 5% to 1% who do both. And the other thing is listening. So listening simply means take a look at all your conversations. Are you asking more questions, or are you responding with more statements? And in 99% of the case, you're responding with more statements. You're not asking enough questions. Yeah. So try and make that ratio 50-50. Very challenging to do, but if you do it, you'll be pretty good.
Yeah. And it's beautiful, because that's how you get to know each other. Like in a romantic situation, if let's say I'm going on a date with a girl, and she know I talk 90% of the time about myself, she got to know me, but I didn't get to know her. And one of the way of how I teach is men in dating, let's say. So it has to be an equal attraction. It's not you see a girl and perhaps she's attractive girl, so you love her just for the sake of being attractive. That's not a healthy relationship. That's not a healthy pursuit. Like to pursue that dating relationship. If you like her for who she is, because you got to know her, because she communicated to you who she is, and you communicated back, and there's true chemistry between the two of you, there's true the values matching, the interaction, the hobbies, the likes, the interests are matching, then yeah, you can actually now connect on a deeper level, and that is going to work for the long run.
Absolutely. And I always like to say this, to build on what you said, that was awesome, by the way, is you asking more questions plays to your own advantage, because you get to actually meet this person, understand who they are, and make a decision really quick on whether or not you should keep dating this person or not. Super easy example. It's probably the most common one. I know you're the expert here, but I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you want kids, and the person you're talking to, you might not find that out in the first date. Let's say you're on date 4, and you realize she really doesn't want kids. Well, if you spent 95% of the time blabbing, you wouldn't realize that. And if you realize it early, despite how pretty she is, you're going to say, she's great, but Long term, 3, 5 years, probably not. I'm wasting my time. Move on. Right. So asking questions plays to your advantage as well.
Yeah, and I think it all comes down to what is it? I think that's one of the rules for Stephen Covey, the 7 habits of highly effective people, which is first seek to understand, then to be understood. And if you understand the other side, then you can be understood as well, because that's just a setup for a good communication between two people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to use Covey's other principle, start with the end first.
Yeah.
What are we trying to achieve here? Right. And I'm sure people are listening to this show aren't just looking for a fling, or else you can go do something else with that. But if you're really looking for that long-term relationship, you really want to start to ask yourself, what are the qualities of someone I'm with for 20, 30 years, 10 years? And how does that person act in every day when I make tough decisions? What does it look like if I'm living with this person? Just painting that picture in your head makes it a lot easier for you to go, yeah, I should probably be more empathetic. I should probably ask more questions, because if I don't, I won't get the person I'm looking for.
Yeah, and again, it's just when you say, when you just talk, and it just what pops in my mind is like how communication is important. Like it just can make life so much easier in so many different areas if you actually go and put the things that you need to put. And some people will like it and some people might not, and the people who appreciate, let's say, in a dating scenario, so you don't waste your time. If you just talk about it in a chill way, in a mutual beneficial way, to not waste no one's time, then it's just going to be, everything is going to be just so much easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's build a little further. So let's say, like, I don't think okay. So I've been to Toastmaster for like 4 years, working on my public speaking skills, and mainly I started because I was terrified of it and I wanted to beat that fear down. So I did a lot of public speaking, and I think I'm still has so much to go. I still have so much more to work, because I don't think I'm a Polish speaker. I have probably grammar mistakes while I'm speaking. Sometimes the words don't come up in my mind. They're like, I don't know what to say, so I say whatever comes up, and the sentence might not kind of formulate in the best way to communicate my ideas. So now I wonder, like, when someone don't know how to communicate, perhaps in a dating situation they are a little nervous, what are some steps that can people, or steps or mindset or ideas that people can use to be able to overcome some those fears? Or a lot of guys in dating scenarios, they say, I don't know what to say, nothing comes into my mind, partially because they are nervous, they have some fears, anxiety about the situation, they are afraid to be rejected. What are some now ways they can approach it, so with all that in mind, with all that happening in the background, they can kind of overcome and find a way to communicate the best way they can, like to formulate the best thing, all things considered?
Absolutely. You know what I always like to say, and a lot of military people say this too, you always default to the level of your training. Always. Right?
Yeah, I
Whenever
love
you
it.
enter any situation, whatever that situation is. So what I always recommend is do the harder thing. Yeah. So that means, for me, doesn't mean you need to approach a girl and do all these things. I would just say practice different things that you're really uncomfortable with. Like, one easy exercise I can recommend on this podcast is the random word exercise. Take a random word, carpet, sofa, doorknob, anything, and just make a presentation out of thin air. That's an easy thing. Another thing is, the next time you're on a dance floor in a club, just go dancing. Most people don't even do that on your own. Just go with your friends and go enjoy that. Go take that extra loop. Karaoke too. Like, go out there and just sing, even if you're not good. These things really push you slightly out of your comfort zone bit by bit. And then you get to a point in your life where you're just ultra confident and you can approach anybody and ask them anything, and your mindset changes around that. But I think the random word exercise is the easiest thing people can do.
Yeah, I love it. I actually, I've been doing it for so long. Not anymore. I don't do it, but I used to do it a lot, and it helped me so much for my public speaking. Because as you know, if you've been to Toastmaster, they have what do you call this exercise?
Table
The
topics.
table topics, exactly. I was like so terrified by it, so I had to work on this. But okay, so in a public speaking scenario, you have to come with a opening, a body, and an ending. Does it the same structure fits like a normal conversation? Probably not. But what is like if you want to communicate something, do you have like a structure for a conversation with somebody you just met or somebody you are interested in dating? Date?
Absolutely. So the way for in the conversation, the structure is fairly similar, but I would say the difference is it's a lot more subtle.
Hmm.
So it's not as structured. It's not, hi Gino, my name's Brenden. I do this. What about you? Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not like that. It's more just say your name, Brenden. Great to meet you. And usually when you say your own name, the person who you're speaking to just tends to say their name.
Hmm.
And then they go, I don't know, Cassandra or something. And then the next thing right away is just question. Like, what are you passionate about? What are you excited about? And if they don't look excited about much, just move on. If they
Hmm.
don't want to talk to you, just move on.
Yeah.
That's what I always do. So whenever I go to an event or a conference and I approach anybody, girls, guys, grandmas, grandpas, oh, it's the same thing, right? Brendan, great to meet you. What are you excited about? And then I just push on that because I just like talking about things that excite me that I find is interesting.
Hmm.
And for me, it's I just want to know what lights people on fire. So let's say a girl responds with dancing, I would just go tell me more about that.
Hmm.
Why is that something you're excited about?
Hmm.
And then the girl at that point goes, well, guys never asked me that question. I love this.
Hmm.
And then after 7 minutes, they go, who are you? And that's when you walk away. You go, have a great day. And they go, hey, wait, but I want to know more about you.
Hmm.
That's the way I've always approached it. So there's not really a strategy. I think the strategy is more just be interested in the other person.
Yeah.
And over time, you find out the people that you like and the people you don't. Because even if you're the best connector in the world, even if you're really good, like I've probably done thousands of these approaches in my life, but even if you're the best in the world, there's always going to be people that you just go, like, okay, like it's great to meet you.
Hmm.
Move on to the next. And every five people, the fifth person, you're going to be like, wow, let's talk to this person for 3 hours, and that's your night.
Hmm. Yeah. So okay. So you sound like you're very very curious about the person. Have you been always like that? Was you like what is it about that you like knowing about other people? Like what's in the background? Like do you just so curious about other people's life, or what is it that behind in the background runs in your mind?
I like that. No one's ever asked me that. It's definitely personality. I would say for me, I just like learning from people. So let's say me and you were at a bar in Vancouver or at a restaurant or something. We were just talking. I would just be interested in what men's dating scene is like in Vancouver. Do you get a lot of clients? What does that look like? Like I'm just really interested in human beings in
Mm-hmm.
general, especially people who do interesting things like you do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just fascinated by that. So I always like to ask questions about people's lives. But it's also a curiosity that I encourage all of us to adopt because especially if you're in a long-term relationship, I think it's so important. If you're not interested in what the person is doing anymore, what the person is up to, what new experiences they're doing, the relationship will get boring really quickly.
Yeah.
It's always the same thing every day. You're never interested in your partner anymore. So I think that curiosity, you don't have to be as crazy as me, but I definitely think, asking something cool like, what's one thing you want to try this month that you haven't tried before? Or one thing you want to try this year that we haven't tried before.
Mm.
I think that leads to a lot more interesting things. And even my best friends, the people I've known for 6, 7, 8 years, there's always still things that I'm always surprised by. I was like, oh, you did that? That's
There's
interesting. Tell
more
me more
depth
about
to
that.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's beautiful. I think also like when you are curious, for someone's life, it shows genuine interest. Like one of the things I know, there is a chemical that is released, what is it, dopamine or serotonin in people's mind when they are talking, when they're speaking about themselves. People love talking. People love sharing about themselves. So it's first thing, it's like you allow people to engage in sharing themselves, which people love, and it's release this chemical in their mind which they enjoy. It shows genuine interest in the people, and it's just like it can make someone's day too, because like you mentioned, a lot of people, they don't listen, they just hear, or they just want to say something about them, like, oh, hear what I have done. I signed up to a martial arts course last week. Oh, here is the award I got last year. So a lot of people, yes, they do love talking about themselves a lot and, show off, whatever that might be. So I think, yeah, when you do that, when you ask the questions and give this genuine presence and listening, it actually can make people day. It's like the best compliment you can give to someone, which I think is just amazing. Like what I do when when I go and I approach girls, I give them the confirmation that I see them. Then I listen to them. And then, I give them my genuine presence. Like I'm just trying to make their day better. That's my kind of goal behind in the background. And a lot of times I hear from girls like, "Oh, you just made my day. Thank you so much." And I see them walking away with this huge smile on their face, and it looked to me like they didn't smile that much for a long time. And it's especially happened, like you said, in relationships when a girl says eventually, I approach them with the intent to get to know them, and then they say, "Oh, I'm in a relationship. I have a boyfriend, whatever." And those girls seem like, yes, they are in this relationship, and this relationship is they don't have this spark in their face anymore. When you're in a relationship, you're supposed to have a spark. You're supposed to be always happy. And I think, yeah, people getting too comfortable over a long time in a relationship and don't engage as much with each other, and that's kind of takes you down. So yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful stuff. um so what do you think now, if you, let's say, somebody will approach you and he's like, okay, I want to go on a date, and they are very excited, they want to leave a good impression, they want to speak clearly, what would you say to that person? He's like, coach me, Brenden, please, I want to do a good job. Like what would be your like advice to that person?
Yeah, I would say the first piece is lose the attachment, right? Girls don't like that. And nobody likes that, right? I'd say the first piece is it's not about having a great date. It's not about having a great conversation. It's just about having a great time. And I think a lot of us, when we put our energy and focus too much on the result of something, and it doesn't happen, when we tie ourselves too much. Oh man, Gino, this podcast needs to be the best podcast episode we ever did in our whole lives. When we set that type of expectation, then we have a lot of stress. Okay, Gino, we got to practice for 4 weeks. Okay, we'll meet every single day for 4 weeks, and then we'll record. But then it removes the fun out of it. So then we're at week 3, and you're like, well, Brenda, I already answered this.
Spontaneity.
Removes the spontaneity.
Yeah.
So what I would say for the dating perspective in particular, I would just say remove the attachment, remove the expectation that it's going to go well or not go well, and just have a good time. That's probably the most important thing. There's nothing really to do with communication. I think it's more just about like setting the right expectation of what
Coming
this
with
is.
the right mindset.
Right mindset, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the framing. And then from speaking perspective, what I would just say is just focus on asking more questions rather than statements. Right. There is some intent here, which is to have a good time. So even if this date doesn't work out, you want this to be a good use of your time, a good conversation. So I would just make it that, right? Focus on questions that you're always interested in asking people. Like I ask really bizarre questions. It's interesting with me. Really quickly whether you like me or not, as a friend or anything. You just know. Like I ask really weird, deep questions. I ask questions like, if you had all the money in the world, how would you spend your time? I gave you $1 billion. What would you spend time? Would you like travel? What would you do? So if the other person goes, well, I don't really know, and why are you asking me that? And I already know immediately, like this is not going to work. Versus if the other person, whether it's a guy or a girl, doesn't really matter. They respond with, I don't know, but let me think about this. Maybe I would do this, maybe I would do this. That's more fun for me. So I think the key is lead the conversation in a way that's fun for you. That would be the second piece. Think about all the conversation in your life that you've had the most fun in. They weren't scripted.
No.
They weren't like, okay, let's sit here like this and like change our head movements. And then you say this question, I respond. So no, it was like all spontaneous. You might have been on a mountain or something. Recreate those conversations. Remember those conversations. And you'll realize that all of it is spontaneity. And then the third piece of advice is empathy.
Yes.
Always.
Which we went through. So yeah, right. It has to be a play to like a play of back and forward. in a spontaneous way. Yeah, and I see that when I had those plays, that's the girls that I'm connected with. Because some girls that I'm talking to, it just you're like, I love this when I basically I lose track of time and space. And sometimes I go on a, let's say I went on a date with a girl, specific girl, and 1 hour was okay, that was enough. Like it wasn't like so much fun to talk with, and there was no much engagement and fun. That happens. And then the other girls, I go for 5 6 hour days. I'm like, what the hell? It's past midnight. What, how did it felt like 20 minutes? And that is the and that's it. I think that's happened to me when there is the play. There's this fun saying random things, kind of engaging, improvising, going to deep whatever conversations, which is awesome. So yeah, I can see this advice is awesome. Thank you for those.
Of course. And just to build on that one small piece is like the energy, like as you were talking to me, you felt really energized. Because we all know in our head, because for somebody else who's listening, it might be, well, the conversations I like is to talk about code for 4 hours. And I was like, cool, go on a date with another engineer and have a blast. Or another one, it's, well, I like to talk about chess all day. Then go to chess club and start talking with some of the girls at
Yeah.
chess club. It doesn't really matter. Whereas for me, it's like I don't take myself too seriously, but at the same time, I like to ask really intellectual questions, and I like pizza. It's like super simple, right? Some people like that, some people don't. When you find the people who like that, you're like, okay, perfect. I think we got a
Yeah.
plan.
Hmm. Okay, cool. So I all the questions I asked so far, or the direction we went through, is what to do, how to do. Those are the things to focus on, I think. And there's so much like golden nuggets in there, like all of this so far. Now, I don't like asking, or I'm trying not to ask questions like what are the mistakes, so people don't know them and don't focus on them. Or at least I'm trying to move to this direction. Let's ask about what is the mistake, because if people engage in those mistakes, they get in their head. But still, I want to ask the question, so what are the most common things you see people in their speaking, the common mistakes they do, that is, getting them off this track of listening, of asking the question, of being empaths and trying to understand the other person. And perhaps they do take themselves very seriously, and there is no play, and it's very structured or whatever. I like, there's so much that I can say about that. But what do you see the most common ones that you people will hear, like, oh yeah, I do that, like that's like so common out there?
Of course. I would say the biggest one, keep things simple, is reps, 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 reps. Your 100th approach is going to be a lot easier than your first one.
Can you say it again? I missed it, sorry.
Reps. So reps means like the number of times you do something, like practice. For example, for me, and it's not even about dating, it's just interacting with people in general. I've interacted with thousands of people. Some people I really like, some people I really don't, and some people I'm like, eh. If you've only talked to a specific number of people, or you're only approaching because you want a girlfriend or you want a date, that's a tough place to be in. Because now there's a lot of pressure on you to do well. Because if you went from someone who's completely antisocial to now I need a wife, now I need a girlfriend, now I need whatever, boyfriend, whatever you want. Now you're focused on, okay, now I have to interact in the right way. Like, whoa, hey, too much pressure. I'd say for me, it's more like, what do you enjoy doing? And just go and talk to different people, boys and girls. Just go and interact more.
Yeah.
And most guys don't really understand it, is that you win on the interaction, not just approaching for a specific purpose, just interacting in general. Okay. So that's the first one. It's reps. That's the first mistake.
So
second mistake,
people don't do is they don't do the reps. They just don't put the work in.
Correct.
Try
they
it
just
once, try it twice. I guess it doesn't work. Whatever. I'm gonna go back to watch Netflix. I don't care.
Yeah, like I'll give you a super easy example. If you've really approached 100 girls and you asked 100 girls for their number, one of them is going to give you their number.
Yeah.
Like guaranteed. Unless you're in like Los Angeles or something. This is just a joke.
Yeah, but I haven't been to
I don't know. I'm just making a joke. But anyways, the point I want to drive is like that's the key. The other thing though is getting married to the result. Like getting married to the outcome of what that conversation should be. Huge mistake. Oh man, I'm totally going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to be friends with this person, or whatever. Big mistake. Because then after a couple of interact, you're just disappointed all the time.
Mm.
Even if some of them work, the fourth time you're like, oh, I didn't get what I wanted. Now I'm frustrated. Now my energy's low. And then that energy is going to get recreated in every new interaction you have.
Yeah.
So that's a huge mistake as well.
Mm.
And then I would say the third mistake is not knowing what the end result is. So what I mean by that is, why are we talking? Why are we having these conversations?
Mm.
And what I encourage people to start with is by saying, okay, there is no result. Who are the people I like talking to? Who are the people I enjoy speaking to? And then from those people, trust me, then you can change the intent after. So then after you go, well, I enjoyed this group of people. And then from that group of people, then you're like, okay, maybe I can find a girlfriend there. Maybe I can go on a couple of dates. That's the right approach. Whereas most people are tied to that end result, or they're too focused on
Mm.
what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are so good. Like, yeah, I think when people how to put it together. Like when people are so concerned about what's going to happen, what's going to be the result, and so like to your second point, uh, I think it just takes them away from the present moment, and they are so much in their head about it, and they're so concerned and focused that it's just yeah. I think that's a beautiful one. Just let go of everything and know what you want, but don't be attached to it, because this is just I remember being there. Like I remember being there myself,
We've all been there.
and yeah, I mean it's like you just make your life harder. It just doesn't work. And the thing about that, like we have the RES, the reticular activation system, and when we focus about on the things, because if we are in our head, we will probably start focusing on the things we do wrong. And as you focus on the things you do wrong, it gets you even more in your head. And also, I think there's something that is very common for people is it's true for me. So let's say when I was doing public speaking, in many of my public speeches at the end, when I walk down from the stage to my chair, in my mind, it's like I did a horrible job. I did like bad, really bad, like horrible. I'm ashamed of myself. And then I go sit down, and my evaluator give me such a good feedbacks, which is it's true in Toastmaster, it's very encouraging and friendly. But then
As it should be.
at the end of the meeting, there's so many more people. Oh my god, that was your best one. That was your best one. I'm like, that didn't make sense to me in my head. So what I did was I brought a camera and I started recording my public speeches. And then at the end of the public speech I gave with the camera on, I sat down. I'm like, again, oh, that was horrible. That was so bad. Again, I got a very good response. So I'm like driving back home, like, no, this was bad. This was so bad. And then I got home, I watched my video, and it was actually so good. I'm like, yeah, that is actually so good. So I think what one thing that happens to in people's mind, it's very common, it's very true for me, is that let's say even the interaction that I've been in, it's like so much good, 90% good, and there's like the 10% that is not so good. My mind will focus on the negative 10%, even though there is 90% of so much good. So I think it's just like, yeah, just go try, not be attached, be free and say whatever there is you want to say, and know what you want to do, but not be attached. I think that's a key word. So, and focus also on the positive too.
Well said, man. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Most of us are just focused, whether it's public speaking or communication or approach, we're always focused on what we're doing wrong. We're not celebrating the wins enough,
Yeah.
the progress that we're making. Just the fact that people are listening to the show and they're still listening to the episode as we're talking means people care. You already have that win. Celebrate. Most guys don't even do this.
Yes.
They don't even take that extra time to just work on themselves, and that puts you in a very good spot.
Hmm. Awesome, Brandon. I really love everything we talked about. I know for sure everybody watching will take so much from it. Um, how can people find you, or is there anything you want to add, perhaps that I didn't ask, and you're like, I think that's important to know before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the thing I'd leave everyone with is the following. The people that are the most interesting that I've talked to follow this rule.
Mm.
And the rule is be insane or be the same. If you want to be like everyone else, that's totally cool. But the people who are awesome, the people who do interesting stuff, the people that other people want to be around are crazy.
Mm.
Don't you find it odd? I started a YouTube channel on public speaking communication tips, Gino, when I was 22 years old.
Mm.
22. In my mother's basement, when other people my age do YouTube videos on vlogs or any other topic, I did it on public speaking. Then when I went on to coach executives on public speaking, but I still live in my mom's basement. I'm talking to on a mattress I sleep on. I don't own a car and I love Justin Bieber. How does this make any sense? That's the point I want to drive, Gino. When every decision in your life makes sense to the only person that matters, which is you, you're going to be a lot more confident with every decision you make in life, and people will take notice of that. So be insane or be the same would be my final words.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, and Brenden, how can people find you, and can you share with them a little bit about like the coaching you do?
Yeah, absolutely happy to. So the easiest way to get involved with me is definitely the YouTube channel. So definitely type Master Talk in one word, and you'll find my YouTube channel. And if you want more than that, if you want to, work on your communication skills, I do a 12-week coaching program. And if you want more information on that, you want to level up your communication, all my contact information is on the YouTube channel.
Okay, awesome. I'll definitely add the links to your Instagram and your YouTube. I'll put the Instagram somewhere here probably, and the YouTube too. I can put the name. Okay, awesome. Brenden, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your contribution. It was very awesome, and we'll keep in touch.
Likewise, man. Pleasure to be on.